All right, so good morning. We are recording now. So in the last lecture, we discussed Pfaffian orientations, right? So we defined what a Pfaffian orientation is using this signs of a perfect matching based on an orientation of a given graph, right? So if all the perfect matchings have the same sign, so either they all have +1 or they all have -1, then we are going to say that it is a Pfaffian orientation, right? And otherwise it is not a Pfaffian orientation. And a graph which has a Pfaffian orientation is called a Pfaffian graph. But unfortunately, not all graphs have Pfaffian orientations. And the smallest graph that does not have a Pfaffian orientation is K33. Okay. We will prove that soon. And I mentioned that all planar graphs are Pfaffian due to a theorem by Castelline from 1963. We will prove this theorem maybe in the next lecture. Okay. Great. So in the case of planar graphs, you can efficiently compute the number of perfect matchings because the graph is Pfaffian. You can find such an orientation, and then you can compute the determinant. Okay. But another question that arises is how do you decide whether a graph is Pfaffian or not? Right. So let's focus on this question. Okay. So if you go by the definition of a Pfaffian orientation, as we have discussed, then it's not even clear how you would convince someone that a graph is Pfaffian or not Pfaffian, right? In an efficient manner. Okay. So immediately from the definitions, it's not clear whether the problem belongs to these complexity classes that we discussed last time. But if you didn't follow that, don't worry about it. It's not that relevant to our course, right? So it's not clear whether the problem belongs to NP or co-NP. And definitely the problem is not known to belong to P. So it's not known to be polynomial time solvable. Okay. But anyways, as I mentioned, the focus today is to get to an equivalent definition of Pfaffian orientations. In fact, I will just say one equivalent definition, which is going to be really important to us. Okay. So with that, let's maybe I'll start on a new page. Okay. So well, this equivalent definition is going to use the concept of conformal cycles. I will come to that soon. Okay. So I want to start with the following. All right. So let's see. Okay. So we are working towards an equivalent definition of Pfaffian, let me just say, okay, Pfaffian orientations. Okay. All right. So let's start with a slightly simpler thing. Let's look at even cycles. I want to understand what orientations of even cycles are Pfaffian and which ones are not. Notice that even cycles are, of course, planar graphs. So we know that they have a Pfaffian orientation, right? So the question is, can we characterize the Pfaffian orientations of even cycles? Okay. So let's start with a small example that will actually be good enough to generalize the observation. So let me take the following even cycle, 6 cycle. Okay. So think of this as our graph G. How many perfect matchings does this graph have? How many perfect matchings do you see here?
2.
Right. So we have got one perfect matching, the red one, and we have got the blue one. Okay. And let's give numbers to the vertices. Let's just label them 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So, well, I want to consider an orientation of this graph. So I will consider the most obvious orientation, and I will probably put the directions on the same drawing. Okay. So G is the undirected graph, and now I'm going to direct the entire cycle in the clockwise direction. Right. So this is our directed graph D. D is the orientation of G. Okay. Great. So let's look at the two perfect matchings with respect to this orientation and see what signs they have. Okay. So maybe I will write them in different colors. So the sign of the perfect matching M1, which is the red one, is the sign of the following permutation, right? So I'll put 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. The order in which you put the vertices doesn't really matter so long as you are consistent for all perfect matchings, right? So you can put it as 0, 3, 2, 1, 4, 5, but then you have to keep the same ordering for all other perfect matching sign computations. Okay. So I'll put the first row as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now 0, 1 is going from 0 to 1, right? This is the direction. 2, 3 is going from 2 to 3. And 4, 5 is going from 4 to 5, right? So here there are no crossings in this drawing. There are no inversions. And so the sign is just minus 1 to the power 0, which is plus 1. Okay. And now let's compute the sign of the blue perfect matching. So same idea. You put the first row as the same one that you put in the previous computation. And now 1 is going to 2. So 1 to 2, that is the direction. 3 to 4, so the direction is like that. And then 5 to 0. So I need to put the tail first and the head later, right? And now let's look at the sign of this. So all of these are going this way. And here I will end up crossing all the lines. So I have 5 intersections or 5 inversions. And that is minus 1 to the power 5, which is minus 1. Right. So what we have here is not a Pfaffian orientation. Right. The two perfect matchings have different signs, so this is not a Pfaffian orientation. Right. D1 is D is not a Pfaffian orientation of G. Okay. So now I want to think about what will happen if I flip one of the edges. Supposing I flip the direction of one of the 6 edges, then what's going to happen? Is the new orientation going to be Pfaffian or is it not going to be Pfaffian?
Yes.
It is going to be Pfaffian, right? Because one of the perfect matchings, the sign will change and the other one will remain the same. Supposing I flip one more, what will happen? Supposing I flip an edge E, so I get a Pfaffian orientation. Now I flip another edge F. What will happen?
No, then it will not be a Pfaffian orientation.
Right, exactly. Okay. So now can you tell me, if I give you an arbitrary orientation of this out of this even cycle, which ones will be Pfaffian orientations and which one will not be Pfaffian orientations? Is there a different way of looking at it? I don't want to compute the signs of the perfect matchings. I just want to look at the directed graph and immediately conclude whether the orientation is Pfaffian or not. Try to think about this observation that we made. When all 6 edges go in the same direction, so you have an even number of clockwise edges, okay? So this is the clockwise direction. Then you have not a Pfaffian orientation. If you flip one edge, you will get a Pfaffian orientation. If you flip another edge, you will get not a Pfaffian orientation. If you flip one more edge, you will get a Pfaffian orientation. So can you put these observations together? Yeah.
Based on the parity of the number of edges that go in clockwise direction.
Exactly. So if the number of clockwise edges and the number of anti-clockwise edges are both even numbers, well, if one is even, then the other is even, then you will have not a Pfaffian orientation. And if both of these are odd numbers, right, then you will have a Pfaffian orientation. Okay. For even cycles, this is true. We basically proved it for one example, and you can think about proving it for general, but it's basically the same idea, right? So, observation. Maybe I'll start with the definition. Yeah, let me put a definition first and then use it for the observation. An even cycle is oddly oriented if it has an odd number of clockwise arcs, right? And well, if there is an odd number of clockwise arcs, then it implies that there exists an odd number of anti-clockwise arcs, right? And otherwise, it is evenly oriented. So the orientation we started with had all 6 edges going in the clockwise direction, right? So that was an evenly oriented even cycle. And whenever we flip an edge, when we flip one edge, we get an oddly oriented even cycle, right? So the observation we just made is that an orientation D of an even cycle, let me call it Q, is a Pfaffian orientation if and only if D is oddly oriented, right? So if there are an odd number of clockwise edges, or maybe let me say Q is oddly oriented with respect to D. Okay. So with respect to that orientation, there is an odd number of clockwise edges and odd number of clockwise anti-clockwise edges, right? So is this, do you believe this? We proved it for a 6 cycle, and I'm sure you can prove it for even cycles in general. It's the same pattern. The pattern doesn't really break. Okay. Any questions or concerns? Okay. So this observation is going to help us in arriving at an equivalent definition of what is a Pfaffian orientation. And that definition is going to be actually more useful to us than the signs of perfect matchings based definition. Okay. So now let me start with an example. So instead of even cycles, let's look at a general graph. So I've made one example here. So what I want to do is, I want to look at the following graph. And I want to understand how we can compare the signs of the two perfect matchings by just studying the graph rather than computing these signs, by looking at these permutations. I just want to look at the graph and figure out if we can somehow understand more graph theoretically what it means for an orientation to be Pfaffian. Okay. So this is my, maybe I should draw the inside square smaller. Sorry. Okay, this is better. So let's say this is my graph G. Okay. And I'm going to look at two perfect matchings here. The red one. So what is the red one? It's this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge, and this edge here. Okay. So this is our perfect matching M1. And now let's look at the blue perfect matching. So it's these edges, and this edge is common to them. So this edge is red as well as blue. Okay. So we've got these two perfect matchings. And right, so this is M2. Okay. And I want to look at an orientation of this graph. But you know what? When you compute the signs of perfect matchings, the only edges that matter are the edges of that perfect matching, right? The other edges of the graph, they don't really matter. So I'm not going to put directions on all the edges. I'm just going to put directions on the red and blue edges, which in this example happens to be most of the edges. Okay. And the directions of the other edges are not going to matter to us. And I will put the directions on the same example rather than making a different drawing. Okay. So let me put this clockwise, clockwise, anti-clockwise, anti-clockwise with respect to this cycle here. And so this is our cycle Q1. It is an M1, M2 alternating cycle of length 4. Okay. So you kind of expect this, right? When you're looking at two perfect matchings, you expect the cycles in their symmetric difference to play an important role. Okay. And we've got another cycle Q2, whose directions I'm going to put as clockwise, clockwise, anti-clockwise, and clockwise, where this is clockwise. Okay. And I'm going to put some direction on this edge, let's say like this. Okay. For all the other edges, the orientations don't really matter. Remaining edges, directions do not matter to the signs of these perfect matchings. Okay, that's why I'm not going to put them. So let's compute the signs of these two perfect matchings. But I'm going to choose my ordering of the vertices in a way that is more convenient. So I will call these 4 vertices 0, 1, 2, and 3. I mean, the labels really don't matter. I'm just choosing a convenient labeling. I'll call these 4 vertices 4, 5, 6, and 7. And I will call these 2 8 and 9. Okay. And now I will compute the signs of these perfect matchings. Sign of M1 is the sign of the following permutation. So let me put first 0, 1, 2, 3. So this corresponds to our cycle Q1. Then I'm going to put 4, 5, 6, 7. This corresponds to our cycle Q2. And then I'm going to put 8 and 9. Okay. And what are the, so this is the red perfect matching. So let's look at the edges. 1, 2. So I'm first going to take edges of Q1, then I'm going to take edges of Q2. Okay. Because basically they are not going to interfere with each other. That's the idea. So Q1 has an edge 1, 2, which is going from 1 to 2. Sorry, M1. Then it has the edge 0, 3, which is directed from 0 to 3. Now let me go to 4, 5. You have the edge 4, 5, which is directed from 4 to 5. And then you have the edge 6, 7, which is directed from 7 to 6. And then lastly, we have the edge 8, 9, which is directed from 8 to 9. Okay, good. So let's look at how many inversions we have. 0 to 0, 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3. Here we have only one inversion, and here we have none, right? So let me put it this way. Minus 1 to the power, how many inversions do I have here? 1, 2, right? And then I have minus 1 to the power, just one inversion. Okay. And then of course here in the last part I have nothing. So rather than writing minus 1 to the power 3, I'm just splitting it by the cycles. First I'm putting 2 because of the cycle Q1, right? This is due to Q1 and this is due to Q2. Okay, so we have got 1 times minus 1, which is minus 1, right? So this is a sign minus 1. Okay, now let me compute the sign of M2. Is everything clear what we are doing so far? Are there any questions or concerns? Okay, great. So now let's do the same thing. Let's put 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And let's look at the second perfect matching. So the blue one, it has the edge 0, 1 directed from 0 to 1. It has the edge 3, 2 directed from 3 to 2, right? It has the edge 5, 6 going from 5 to 6. 4, 7 going from 7 to 4. And it has the edge 8, 9 going from 8 to 9, right? Great. So let's look at the number of inversions here. There is 1 here. So we get minus 1 to the power 1 due to Q1. To 6 and 7 to 7. So we get 3 inversions here due to Q2. And then we have 8, 9, which has no inversions, so I won't write it down. Okay? Great. So what I want you to observe here is that, let's see, the contribution of Q2 has actually remained the same. It was minus 1 to the power 1 in the M1 matching, and in the M2 matching, it is minus 1 to the power 3. Okay? However, the contribution due to Q1 is different. It was minus 1 to the power 2, which is equal to plus 1. Now in the M2 matching, it is minus 1 to the power 1, which is minus 1, right? So observe that the contribution of Q2 is the same in both matchings. M1 and M2. It is exactly -1 to the power an odd number, which is -1. However, Q1's contribution is different, right? It's -1 to the power 2, which is +1 in the case of M1, and it is -1 in the case of M2. So the reason the signs of these two perfect matchings are different is due to the cycle Q1. That is the one that is flipping signs, whereas Q2 is not flipping signs, right? So why is that happening? Can we go back to our two cycles Q1 and Q2 and look at our previous observation and figure out what's the difference between Q1 and Q2? Can one of you tell me what's the difference between Q1 and Q2? Why is one of them having the same contribution, whereas the other one is having a different contribution in both cases?
Because the red and blue edges in these two cycles are interchanged.
Okay.
I mean, the red and blue matching, the edges of the red and blue matchings are interchanged in positions. Like when the Q1's red edge is like the Q2's blue edge, so they push interchanged.
I want you to think of it in terms of the previous observation. What you pointed out does not seem to be the correct reason. So there are two different perfect matchings. Their symmetric differences are going to be even cycles. Right? Go ahead. Sorry?
Yes. So in Q1, we have like parity is same. But in Q2, parity is not same. So that is the thing.
Right. Right. So Q1 is evenly oriented and Q2 is oddly oriented. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Right. So that is the observation I want to get at. What's the difference between these two cycles in Q1 and Q2 is that one of them is an evenly oriented cycle. There is the two clockwise edges and two anti-clockwise edges. That is a cycle Q1. And the other cycle Q2 has three clockwise edges and one anti-clockwise edge. So it is oddly oriented. And we know that in even cycles, the orientations that are Pfaffian are exactly the oddly oriented ones, right? So because Q1 is evenly oriented, the contribution of Q1 is changing. It's not a Pfaffian orientation for that cycle. So its contribution to the sign of the perfect matchings is also different. One of them is contributing -1, and in the other one, it is contributing a +1. Okay? So the reason for this is that Q1 is evenly oriented. So it is not a Pfaffian orientation of the corresponding even cycle. So I mean, the reason I'm saying it this way is Q1, you can think of Q1 as the directed graph, and the corresponding even cycle is the underlying undirected graph. Okay. But anyways, just to distinguish between the directed cycle and the underlying undirected cycle. Okay. Whereas Q2 is oddly oriented. Or another way to say it is, let me say it in a more consistent manner. So D is the directed graph. So the restriction of D to the cycle Q1. Okay, let me put it that way. The D restricted to Q1. This is the restriction of D to the undirected cycle Q1. So then I don't need to say corresponding. I can just say it is not a Pfaffian orientation of Q1. Okay, so now I'm referring to Q1 as the undirected cycle. Okay, and if you look at the restriction of the D, which is our orientation to Q2, it is oddly oriented. So it is a Pfaffian orientation of Q2. Okay, and because it is a Pfaffian orientation, the contribution to both matchings M1 and M2 is the same. It's both going to be +1 or it's going to be -1 for both of them, right? And when it is not a Pfaffian orientation, the contribution is going to be different. Okay, so what we are doing here is I am essentially telling you how to prove things by example. Okay, but you can write a formal proof if you care to. Okay, but hopefully I can convince you by examples that certain observations are true. Okay, I'm just not writing down formal rigorous proofs because I don't think there is much point of that right now. Okay, so whenever you have an evenly oriented cycle, it is going to flip the signs of the two perfect matchings. That's basically the point I'm trying to make here. It is the evenly oriented M1, M2 alternating cycles that are contributing to switching the signs of the two perfect matchings. So if you have two evenly oriented cycles, what will happen is one of them will switch the sign, but then the other one will switch the sign again. So now they will be of the same sign. Okay, so the observation here is, given a graph G and an orientation D, and two perfect matchings M1 and M2, if you want to compare the signs of M1 and M2, so our goal is to compare the signs of M1 and M2 by looking at the symmetric difference of M1 and M2, right? So this is going to be a bunch of even cycles, M1, M2 alternating cycles, right? Each component is an M1, M2 alternating cycle, and necessarily it has to be an even length cycle, right? So we want to look at these cycles, and by looking at these cycles, we want to figure out whether the two perfect matchings have the same sign or do they have different signs. So the observation is that each evenly oriented cycle will flip the signs of M1 and M2. Every time you have an evenly oriented cycle, maybe I don't want to say it that way. I want to say it differently. Maybe I don't want to say flip the signs. I'll say will contribute to switching how do I say this? Each evenly oriented cycle will Okay, maybe I'll put it this way. The contribution of each even cycle will be different towards M1 and M2. So if it contributes a +1 towards the sign of M1, then it will have to contribute a -1 towards the sign of M2. Okay, so what would happen if you had an even number of evenly oriented cycles? Supposing I have an example where I have the symmetric difference of two perfect matchings is, let's say, 3 cycles. Okay, Q1, Q2, and Q3. So this is an example where the symmetric difference of M1 and M2 has 3 components. So there are 3 cycles, Q1, Q2, and Q3. Okay, so I haven't drawn the matchings, but each perfect matching is going to basically alternate on these cycles, right? So one of them is going to look like this. Sorry, that's the wrong parity. If one of them takes these 3 edges, then the other one will have to take these 3 edges, right? But then the way you do it on the other cycles, you have more possibilities. Either these 2 could be blue or the other 2 could be blue, for example, right? So I'm not drawing the red and blue, I'm just drawing the cycles, right? So if this cycle is evenly oriented and this cycle is also evenly oriented, for example, and let's say this last one is oddly oriented, then can one of you tell me what will be the signs of the 2 perfect matchings? Will they be the same or will they be different?
Same.
Same.
Right, exactly. Right. So you have 2 evenly oriented cycles, so they will end up being the same. So one way to look at the signs of the perfect matchings is to look at the parity of the number of evenly oriented cycles. Right. So the conclusion is that here is one way to write this. Sine of M1 multiplied by sine of M2 is equal to -1 to the power number of evenly oriented M1, M2 alternating cycles. So it's implicit that we are looking at the graph induced by those edges, and we are looking at how many cycles are evenly oriented, right? So notice what this means. If the signs are same, if and only if the number of evenly oriented cycles is even, right? Because if the signs are same, the product will be +1. It's either -1 times -1 or it's +1 times +1. In both cases, the product is -1, which means it's -1 to the power an even number, right? Because it's +1, so that has to be -1 to the power some even number. So you have an even number of evenly oriented cycles, then the signs are going to be the same. And if there is an odd number of evenly oriented cycles, then the signs of the 2 perfect matchings are going to be different. Okay. So in our example, we had 1 oddly oriented cycle and 1 evenly oriented cycle. So we had an odd number of evenly oriented cycles, which is why their signs are different. Okay, signs of M1 and M2. Okay, so great. So this is a very nice observation, because rather than doing this permutation business, You just look at the symmetric difference, and by looking at the cycles, you can figure out whether the two perfect matchings are the same sign or different signs. Okay? Any questions or concerns? Right? So we looked at examples and observations, but you can turn all of these into rigorous theorems with proofs, right? Okay. I'm just not doing that and focusing on the intuition. All right. So what is the next thing I want to tell you? I want to take this a step further. Right. Okay. So you can call this a proposition, right? So the setup is given here. You have a graph G with an orientation D, and I should be more precise here. We are looking at the signs with respect to that orientation, right? Okay, good. So now I want to use this observation to get an equivalent definition of Pfaffian orientations. Okay, there is one last ingredient we need. What I want to do next is I want to get a better understanding of these alternating cycles, right? Right now, what we are doing is we are taking two perfect matchings and we are looking at their symmetric difference. I want to get an understanding of these alternating cycles, which does not depend on perfect matchings. It's somehow more direct. Okay. So next goal is to get a better understanding of M1, M2 alternating cycles. Okay. Right. So I want you to make the following observation. Let's say I take two perfect matchings, M1 and M2, like before, and I look at their symmetric difference. Let's say the symmetric difference has, I don't know, 3 looks like a good number. So I'll go with 3 again. Okay. And in fact, rather than looking at the symmetric difference, let me look at the union, right? I want to not throw away the other vertices. I want to keep the whole graph in my view. So the union is going to look like a bunch of even cycles and some K2s, right? So let's actually put red and blue. Supposing these are red edges, let's say these are red, and let's say these are red. Okay. And the other cycles will have the alternate edges as the blue edges. And these K2s that we see here, they are both red and blue, right? That is why they are K2s in the union. So what we are doing is we are looking at the graph induced by M1 union M2, where M1 is the red perfect matching and M2 is the blue perfect matching. Okay. I want you to observe that if Q is any cycle in this graph, so let Q be a cycle in the graph M1 union M2. Then G delete the vertices of Q has a perfect matching. So look at this graph. I claim that this graph has a perfect matching. Do you agree? If I take any one cycle and I look at the graph after removing the vertices of that cycle, this graph has a perfect matching. Do you guys agree? Do you see a perfect matching?
Yes, sir.
Right? You look at either the red or the blue's restriction
Hello?
to that graph, and that is a perfect matching. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay. So we are going to put a new definition. A cycle Q of a graph G is conformal if G delete the vertices of Q has a perfect matching. Right? So in other words, this Q is a conformal cycle, right? So every cycle that is M1, M2 alternating, given two perfect matchings M1 and M2, is any such cycle is a conformal cycle. It has the property that when you delete the vertices, the remaining graph has a perfect matching. Turns out the converse is also true. Every cycle that is conformal can be written as a symmetric difference of two perfect matchings. The converse is also true. So what I mean by that is every conformal cycle can be expressed as the symmetric difference of two perfect matchings. So supposing I give you a conformal cycle, supposing I tell you that here is a cycle that is conformal. What that means is that in the remaining graph, there is a perfect matching. So this is a graph G minus vertices of Q has a perfect matching. Let's say M. Then I claim that Q can be written as a symmetric difference of two perfect matchings of the graph G. Do you see how to do that, Surya?
Yes, sir, kind of.
Right? So you would
Yes, sir.
take this perfect matching M along with these three edges. That would be M1. And then you would take the same guy with these three edges, and that would be M2. And now look at this. The symmetric difference of M1 and M2 is exactly going to be the cycle you chose. Right? So every cycle that is conformal can be written as symmetric difference of two perfect matchings. And if you take two perfect matchings and you look at the symmetric difference, then every component is a conformal cycle. So actually what we proved is slightly stronger. It's not just a component, it is actually the whole symmetric difference. Okay. So great. So now we have this new notion of conformal cycles. And it turns out that using our previous proposition, we can actually get an equivalent definition of Pfaffian orientations based on conformal cycles. And I will just tell you what the definition is, and I will let you think about it and give you a more rigorous explanation in the next lecture. So the theorem, I will have to check who this is due to, but it's a well-known thing in Pfaffian orientations. An orientation of a graph G is a Pfaffian orientation if and only if every conformal cycle, notice that we are not making any reference to perfect matchings of the graph. I mean, implicitly we are, because conformal means when you delete the vertices of the cycle, there is a perfect matching. But we are not looking at the signs of every perfect matching. We are just looking at the cycles of the graph, right? If and only if every conformal cycle is oddly oriented. So orientation D, and this is oddly oriented with respect to D. Okay. And one direction is actually easy. We have essentially proved it. If all conformal cycles are oddly oriented, then it is a Pfaffian orientation. So this follows from proposition. I want you to think about it offline. So I'm referring to this proposition here. Okay. So think about how this proposition implies the validity of the converse of this theorem. Okay. So follows from last proposition. And this one is easily proved. You can think about it yourself, or we will do it in the next lecture. Okay. So we will show that if there is a single cycle that is not oddly oriented, then you can find two perfect matchings that have different signs. Okay. That can also be done easily by what we have discussed so far. But in case it's not clear, I will discuss that next time. Okay. So this gives us an equivalent definition of Pfaffian orientations. That relies on conformal cycles rather than perfect matchings instead of perfect matchings. Okay. Does it kind of make sense? Is the theorem kind of believable at this point, or does it seem bizarre?
You have to think about that itself, sir.
Okay, fine. So think about it. As I said, the converse direction follows from the previous proposition. So think about that one. And we will discuss the forward direction in the next lecture. Okay. So this is the equivalent definition I wanted to get to today. And in the next lecture, we will use it to prove interesting facts. Okay. Good. So yeah, if there are any questions or concerns, please shoot them. I'm here for another 3 minutes or so.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Surya.
I actually got discouraged in the end. So
Okay.
could you please define conformal cycle once?
Yes. Yes, I can go through that.
Okay.
So, so what we observed previously was that to decide whether the signs of two perfect matchings are same or different, we look at the number of evenly oriented M1, M2 alternating cycles, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So now we want to get a better understanding of these alternating cycles. So what I did is I took an example. Here is an example. We are looking at the union of the two perfect matchings. I don't want to look at the symmetric difference. I want to keep the common edges. Okay. So here I'm taking two perfect matchings, red and blue, and the union is going to have some cycles and some K2 components, right?
Yes.
So these are the K2s. And what I want you to observe is that when you delete the vertices of this cycle, any cycle, so let's say this is the cycle Q, then the remaining graph is a perfect matching. Do you believe this?
Yes, yes.
Right? It's clear, right? So for each cycle of this union, the property is that when you delete the vertices, the remaining graph is a perfect matching. We will call such a cycle a conformal cycle.
Okay.
Okay. So every cycle in the symmetric difference or in the union is a conformal cycle of the graph. And then I want to claim that the converse is also true. Every cycle that is conformal can be written as a symmetric difference of two perfect matchings.
Okay.
Okay, so that one,
Hmm.
do you see how to do that? Supposing there is a conformal cycle, so the remaining graph has a perfect matching.
Yes.
Then I can construct two perfect matchings, M1 and M2, and their symmetric difference will be exactly this cycle,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mhm.
this is basically the converse of what we did before, right?
Yes. Got it.
So these M1, M2 alternating cycles are exactly the conformal cycles. And now I want to get an equivalent definition of Pfaffian orientations using conformal cycles. So this is the equivalent definition.
Okay.
Okay. And one direction will be, it's easy to prove using the proposition we discussed. And the other direction, we will discuss why it is true in the next lecture. It's not difficult also. It is also you can also prove it easily using our observations so far. Okay.
Yes.
So that's basically what we did in the last few minutes.
Yes. Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. All right. So if there are no other questions or concerns, and I'll see you in the next lecture.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. Thanks. Bye, Shani.